Thank you all for joining us at the brand new studio, our residence. This is one of our newest experimental locations. Third space that we're looking to get over here. And thanks to Q for making this space look so beautiful. It's beautiful art, and I'm excited to be here. I don't know about you all. So thank you all so much for joining us. We got a great conversation. Gathering creatives is something that we strive to do, and creating safe spaces for them to express themselves, work with other individuals who are looking to build, and just grow a brighter future in Atlanta together is something that we're super passionate about. So we're just super happy to have you all with us because you all are the founders, the foundation of what will make this city great. So give a round of applause for yourselves. Okay, and today we have a wonderful conversation with a person who I admire a great deal. He's been around and helping us out for a very long time from the very beginning, and I'm greatly appreciative of him. He's a maven, a maverick. He does a lot of different things, but what he does most is translate everything you want to say and think about the things that you can't say, but somehow formulate it into the most beautiful narrative that you can think of. And his companies, all of his endeavors do such a great job of weaving the story together. So today we are joined by none other than Marcus Hollinger.
Man.
So Marcus, can you give us a little bio? Tell us a little bit about you and your story that is unique to you.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the Midwest, Kansas City, Missouri, to be exact. I probably picked up my storytelling, creative chops as a kid. Earlier I had my sons up in here, and my oldest son said he wants a spot like this when he gets older, and he wants to throw parties and things. And it was a very full circle moment because that's how I grew up. Always in studios with my uncles and my cousins making music. I started writing raps when I was in the fourth grade, and
Didn't know you're a rapper.
Used to always get in trouble in school for talking. I'm talking kicked out type vibes.
That's
my
right.
entire educational career. But it wasn't until I got to college that I learned how to do something with it. So I went to KU and the University of Kansas, and I studied I told folks that I was like, what do I need to? I want to be Russell Simmons. What do I need to study to be like him? And they were like, you can do business or you can do journalism. So I dual enrolled, took J101. I get in there, they're saying things like, the message is the medium. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's cancel that business class. This is where I need to be. That time I spent on campus, I used to always tell my professors I felt like I was at Hogwarts because it was just this collection of characters who were incredible storytellers. They were very hard on our work, and for most of my time there, I felt like I wasn't good enough. But I got into this, a Francophile as well, so I studied French hardcore.
That's hard.
I wanted to work in advertising in France. And I met this guy who was working at this apartment complex, and my boss was like, hey, my friend works in France, and he's in advertising. And I was like, so you gonna hook this up? Met the guy. He told me exactly how he got there. I enrolled in the program. It was this feeder program for minorities in advertising. This is the multicultural advertising intern program. Applied, got placed in New York, toured, worked across all of the agencies, the WPP.
Oh, nice. That's
profile. Had a dream client. I was working on Audi. So this was when they dropped the A7, the 5-door coupe is what they were calling it.
It was a little sport back.
And that grill with the lights.
Super nice.
That was like my first
That's
project.
That's a big project.
And did that, and was also working on AB InBev at the time because they were trying to win Stella Artois and Bud Light. So I just got thrown into the middle of the stuff. And after that, I was like, oh, okay, it's up. And I'm grabbing up all the frameworks. I'm grabbing up all of the contacts and all those other things. And I went back to campus. I didn't go right into advertising right away because I had a spiritual experience. And so I stuck around on the campus. And it felt like more of a compelling challenge to figure out how to storytell the spiritual experience that I had to try to make that accessible to other people. So using art and creativity and things to build relationships with college students was my first. I was like, I mean, if I can work on Audi,
right, you can do anything.
I can do anything.
Heard.
So I was like, why not do what I want to do?
Heard.
And at the time, that's what I wanted to do. Fast forward, I came to Atlanta on a service trip, and there was this gentleman by the name of Ben Washer. He was the CEO at Reach Records, and at the time, to me, he represented the version of Don Draper from Mad Men that I wanted to be. He was like the faith version of Don Draper. By wild circumstances, he and I had breakfast at Homegrown. I'll never forget it.
It's a good spot.
We were chilling. I'm asking him all these questions because I was going to go back and continue to do my thing. But then he's like, hey, you want to come on over to the studio? I'm like, yeah. And so we just talking. Cool. I'm like, I got all the inspiration I need. I'm going to go back to Kansas. I'm going to build up this art faith thing. I'm going to do my thing. I get a call. Hey, Marcus, they asked us if you can work for them instead of us. And we said yes. So you need to pack your bags and be in Atlanta in 2 weeks.
It was good.
So I said, okay. Mind you, I had just spent 2 years raising my salary, driving a 1994 Chevy Silverado across the Midwest, asking people for money so I could do this thing I was doing. Big storytelling training in that.
That's dope.
So I get here to Atlanta, 2014. First project I work on, Lecrae's Anomaly, went #1 in the country. And it was the first full project I worked on. We dropped the #1 album. Beat out.
That's tough. That's like a hard thing to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's especially in a faith-based project as well. Like, how did you overcome those hurdles with that? Like,
okay, so I guess we jumping right into it. So I think Ariana, Maroon 5, and Mac Miller, I think we did like 80K first week, and I think we did #1. But what was happening was, so there's a couple of things was happening in the industry and what we did. So what was happening in the industry is this was, I think at the time, Justin Bieber was the only artist who had signed a streaming friendly deal. So that's just where we were at with like Spotify. Like no one had
good deals.
And so physicals were just dry. It was just
true. Yeah, that was the transition.
It was a transition moment. The market we were in, though, you could still move physicals.
True. People got faith.
We had Lifeway. We had all these Christian retailers who, so you would see, like, we were a real anomaly because the Christian music industry, if you know anything about it, it's like kind of like 5 years behind.
Yeah, but they're very tactile, right? They do everything, the old school kind of way.
Yeah.
That worked. That's great.
And so that was kind of what was happening in the industry. But for us, I had just come off of, I had this professor, Charles Marsh. Shout out to Chuck, if you're watching this. I had to take remedial journalism I had to take remedial math, and I had to take remedial grammar.
We got to make sure we got it. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
but it was dope, though, because my man Chuck used to show up every day, and he'd be like, listen, if you get this, you're going to make money. He said, you are going to make money. Learn this stuff, you will make money. Every day he'd come in class, say, we're talking about how to make money, and it's through this writing. Okay. All right, let me move forward. So he had this, 9-step thing called a strategic message planner. And I just memorized this thing. Like, it was in me. So I was tasked with social media, but I was like, actually, I think I want to just like develop. I want to work on the full message, like the architecture of the messaging. We had an incredible team. My man Alex Medina, who's now a creative director at Uninterrupted, world class creative director. He was doing his thing. I was kind of working my end doing like social / kind of like architecting the narrative using that SMP framework. And then we just had a great management team. We had a great, just a lot of things firing on all cylinders. And the narrative storytelling of that project, because the project was called Anomaly, and we had this sub tagline, which was "The system didn't plan for this." And so we ran that story, we ran that concept of what does it mean to be an anomaly. And we started it with this campaign in a journal. It was like very short copy and a hashtag, and the copy we reached out to like Jeremy Lin, Steph Curry.
Basketball. Okay.
Oh, and this is when Jeremy Lin had just come off the Linsanity thing. So we seeded this message with we crafted the message, which was Anomaly we had this process called a brand brief. So 2 frameworks, brand briefing and strategic message planning. I'll come back to that a little bit.
Okay.
So we ran our brand brief to come up with the name Anomaly. And then I think I was like, I have this other thing because we need like a tagline. And we ran that process and we came up with the system didn't plan for this. And so to seed out the project, we hit up all these Christian adjacent people, and like we had Lecrae write down something. I can't remember what his message was. I remember mine was I graduated high school with a 1.6, and then I graduated college with a 3.4. Hashtag I'm an anomaly. And and these messages just went viral. Like it was everywhere. It was then we put them up in Times Square, and like we like told this story, and then we rolled out all these things about Lecrae being like not Christian enough for Christians, but not hip hop enough for hip hop. And it was just this, we had gotten a hold of this cultural tension that just made it super easy to roll out the music. And it was on that project where I was coming into that project, I was more big on be mindful of process. If you trust the process, it's gonna come out. You know what I mean? But after that project, I became super convinced of this notion that like a lot of times people would say like content is king, and I was like, nah, context is king. You create context before you roll out your content or before you roll out your whatever. People will have a greater likelihood of
catching on to it.
Yeah, and that was sort of what we
So
did.
that's like a good insight, and these insights are things that you garner along the way, and as you've worked with so many different brands and organizations, how would you say now they utilize your skill set to tell great stories?
I mean, it's funny because so I did my thing in music, sort of being in that space for 10 years. Then I got a hold of this thing called human-centered design thinking. And it's an innovation toolkit. For those who don't know what design thinking is or human-centered design is, it got popularized by this guy named David Kelly, who was like one of Steve Jobs' closest friends. And basically, he created a process that you could wrap around. He created a process that you could use to sort of move through innovation. And there's these mindsets or toolkits that come with this: empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. So that first one, empathy, is where I probably work the most in storytelling nowadays. So what I was doing when I first got started was message development, strategic message planning, figuring out a caricature, if you will, of who the end user is, and then just being hyper focused on that message.
Those profiles are super important, and knowing the customer, dialing in, what are they thinking?
Yep. And so now, the way I relate to brands or stories or whatever, it's actually flipped. Now it start with empathy. Go and figure out who it is that we're trying to talk to and have an actual conversation with them.
Okay.
And particularly look for emotional pain.
Emotional pain.
Look for go have a real conversation with people who So for instance, it might be like, oh, let's reimagine healthcare for Gen Z.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, let's go out and have actual conversations with 6 people from that age group. I'm asking open-ended questions. I'm not superimposing, I'm withholding judgment. And I'm really trying to get them to a very specific moment. I might say, tell me about a recent moment you had a healthcare challenge. Give me something specific. I want you to tell me a story.
And they'll tell you what's painful.
And they'll tell you it's painful
Word.
and emotional. And from there, I'm quote taking,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that we could talk about. It's not note taking. I'm actually quoting
What did
them
they say?
in their words.
Word.
And then I'm looking I'm going to try to frame it up. What was surprising in that, right?
Mm.
See, in journalism school, they used to tell us, if a dog bites a man, that's not news. But if a man bites a dog, that's
right.
news. So in those conversations, I'm looking for what is truly surprising about this conversation that we just had. And then I'm going to try to frame it in a way. I met Lavelle. I was surprised to notice that he said going to the doctor reminds him of being left in his room as a 5 or 6 year old.
That's dark.
And then I'm going to ask, because these are the types of things
Right.
that come up when you start having
makes
these
sense.
conversations.
You got strong emotions attached.
Then I'm going to make an inference and I'm going to say, I wonder what motivated him to feel like that.
Mm.
Might be wrong, but I'll say, okay, I wonder if this means going to the doctor makes him feel.
Looking to experience the future of luxury today? Well, visit us at the Study by Residence. Privately located in Atlanta's historic Old Fourth Ward, the Study brings a curation of some of the best emerging designer fashion across the country to create your new look. Simply visit residence-atl.com/thestudy, choose your appointment slot, and book your personal shopping experience with a click of a button. Welcome home.
Get passed down, just a little bit, but it's great. I love
it. So stories mean that much to me because they are how we survive. Now let's bring that up to modern and contemporary times. Stories begin and end wars.
True.
Right? So you think about some of the geopolitical conflict that we're in right now. Like, what story is being told? Who gets to use the word strike versus who gets to use the phrase missile attack? Who gets to use the word casualty? Those types of words that build those stories and narratives. These things.
They can be weaponized and shifted to tell different sides of the story. And,
100%.
That's an interesting thing you said there. So what would you feel like is the power of leveraging great stories? Like, how do you see this in your work in the sense where it's like you tell a great story? What does it mean for people? Like, what are they able to accomplish?
So I have a dear friend. I'm gonna call her a mentor, all the affectionate terms. Her name is Kathy Armias, and she's a TED coach out in Portland. And she has this phrase. She says, stories are from us, but they are for you or for them. And I think storytelling in its truest form it's service. It's a service to others, right? To help them overcome, to help them get through the thing, right? And so I think the power of story, again, let's go back to this team of, I had a chance to work with a major streaming platform, a creative team inside that place. These are some of this team is a global team of creators. Mm-hmm. You have folks from South America, you have folks from Atlanta, you have folks from New York, and they felt like they weren't having internal influence. Mm-hmm. If they could get that influence, the expertise and the knowledge that they had commiserate with what they were working on, mm-hmm. could change the game for content. Because they're working with podcasts, audiobooks, all these types of things.
Across
different mediums. And they have the expertise and the know-how. It's just mm-hmm. internally they don't have the influence because of politics, because of the challenges of cross-functional collaboration. So to me, I'm like, if you guys can leverage storytelling,
you can catalyze.
And you can change the game for what we're doing right now.
Heard.
You know what I mean?
So you create a little resonance.
1000%. And then, you know, bring it back to like what's going on right now with what we're seeing in Iran. Like, if we can have everyday people leveraging the power of storytelling, then we can create more signals in the noise and actually help people get the information that they need and train people on how to communicate these ideas that are actually shaping our lived reality right now.
It makes sense. So in that, what do you feel are the most crucial elements of story so that you can communicate most effectively?
So I think the first thing I would say is listening. So in the last project I worked on, as I was really deep diving into the material, something came out and stuck with me, and it was the best stories don't start with writing. They start with listening. So the first thing I would say is listen, man. Like, listen to the people you're trying to serve with your stories. But then also listen. Just listen in general. Like, a good friend of mine, Haywood Watkins III, he's an award-winning advertiser. He's worked at the New Yorker magazines and all these great things. When we were in that program I told you about, he was like valedictorian from VCU, the Brand Center. Haywood, I just like talking about you, man, because I really look up to you. He told me one time, he was like, listen, man, the input is everything. The output is advertising. If I shift that a little bit and say that word input, that's just another way of saying listening.
True.
Like, listen well. Like, have a good listening diet. Listen to the great storytellers, right? Read the best storytellers. Like, do all these things, right? Because there's always something that's going to sort of shaping how we tell our stories. I think after that, you know, prototype it a little bit. You know, you don't have to like have this well-crafted rollout of this well-crafted narrative. Just try things. Get your ideas out of your head and into the hands, eyes, ears of the person on the other end. Do it quickly so that you can, you know what works.
That's a good point. Like, you know, I think a lot of people sometimes struggle with telling their stories, myself included, you know? So what are some things that you see people getting hung up on that they can easily resolve? You mentioned listening, you know, that's a really good one. But what else besides that will help those who, you know, can improve in those areas?
I say pay attention to what connects with you, right? So listening, you're doing that one part of the work, right? But then find the storytellers or the musicians that you like, or the books and the authors that you like. There's a reason why that's resonating with you. Maybe there's literary devices, maybe there's a tone. You know, like for me, Bell Hooks, I'm like, when I read her books, she just helps me understand. She helps me grasp things in a way that I otherwise couldn't. And so I'm like, why? Why is this sticking with me the way that it is? I mean, how can I use that? Another, maybe a better a way to sort of make that portable is to say that, gosh, I just lost the thought, but just pay attention to...
Low on time but need to make a flavorful impression? Great news, Razzie Snacks caters. Let us take care of your next private dinner or catering experience to give your guests a vibe to remember. Visit residence-adl.com for more information and inquire today.
His AI book. I can't think of the title right now, but it's all about co-creating with AI. And he has this incredible principle in the book where he talks about keeping the human in the loop. Do not let technology remove your humanity or the humanity of others in the process of creating. A simple way to say that is own the first draft.
Okay.
Like, don't bring AI in on your first draft. Like, own your first draft, then bring the tools in. But what I would say from that, there's a poem that I read about reading. I can't remember the person who said it, but they said when you read, they talked about this relationship between having somebody read something to you versus you reading something yourself. And what they said is when you read something yourself, it's your voice building the association with what you're reading. So if I read Red Barn, my brain is serving me my emotional memories my emotional ties to what a red barn is.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody else is reading or giving me that information, I'm filtering it through that. So I think by reading, despite the pressure to not, you're actually cultivating your voice because you're speaking to yourself, what you're reading. Getting to the point faster, I'd say that's where listening comes in. You know, the whole concept of like stories are from me, but they're for you.
Mm-hmm.
Just find out that thing that what does the person from me need? I could talk about my life story from so many different ways, but if Brittany is really just here for
that one
little nugget, then let me, by understanding what her needs are, then I can get to it and just say, oh, this is what Brittany needs from me because it's about her, not me.
Okay. So what do you think there's 3 things that every creator should know to kind of like hone in on their creative endeavors, like grow them? Like, what would you say are the 3 most important things?
One, I'm gonna say diet. Be ruthless about your diet, what you take in. Now, I know everybody's gonna say, oh, okay, cool, so it means I need to have great coffee table books, I need to look at great art. Yeah, also, what about that last text message that you read? Was that helping you?
True, that is like you don't even think about that. Those are very, very related. Like your input, like what are you intaking? You know, like sometimes it doesn't have to be just food. Like, are you intaking junk? Are you consuming junk as you continue to scroll your life away? Right?
Because I mean, you're either getting better or you're getting worse at your craft. Like there's really no in between on this, and this is something I have to constantly wake myself up and say. So that would be the one thing. I think the other thing would be great artist ship. That's from Austin Kleon. He wrote this book, Share Like an Artist. Get your stuff out. Like, get your stuff out. Especially now, you know, with the algorithms and all of that. Like, people ain't really paying attention. Like, on my personal IG, I feel like I'm putting out some of the best stuff I'm making art. I'm doing all this stuff. This stuff got like 25 views, right? So, like, cool, keep going, right? Because you're getting a chance to, like, workshop these ideas and get these things out. You're going to find yourself. You're going to find something in the work that otherwise you wouldn't get. So, get the stuff out. And I think, lastly, would be to collaborate. Like, collaborate, you know, bring somebody else into your mix. Like, there's my buddy Blair. Like, I showed him, one day we were chilling at my house, and I showed him my sketchbook. And he was like, bro, you're an artist. And I was like, I've never showed anybody my sketchbook. But because we're collaborating in business, he was like, yo, you should draw some chess pieces. So I drew a chess piece. Oh, it's crazy, but we got to put this on a shirt. I'm like, I would have never thought to make a shirt based off of a sketch of a chess piece if I didn't bring somebody else into my world and be vulnerable.
These are very good, important points. You know, vulnerability and the willingness to collaborate are very important things to growing as a creator.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just one of the foundational things that we strive to do with this particular rm4 Accelerator event here that you all are attending today. It's creating the space and the opportunity for people to, you know, tell their stories, share their stories, and collaborate together amongst creators.
Can I throw a bonus on there? And they asked me for 3 things. I think own your voice. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a dad. I'm from the Midwest. You know what I'm saying? Like, and those are things that I used to, like, run from. Because I would look at what was out there, and I'm like, oh, man, if I'm a dad, people don't think I'm washed. Like, man, I'm in Atlanta.
There's whole vibes for dads. Dads
whole
are vibes now.
Whole vibes. I used to say, oh, man, I'm from the Midwest, but I'm in Atlanta. Nobody want to hear that. You know, nobody want to hear what niggas ain't listening to Lupe no more. Niggas ain't listening to the cool kids. But the more I just tap in and say, look, bro, like, you have your experiences, like, you have who you are, and the more I, like, speak from that place, the more I'm finding, one, I can do what I'm doing. Like, I've done so much work, and I've been so successful being disembodied, though. Like, actually feeling disconnected from myself in the process of doing things. And, you know, that becomes some challenges. But if now that I'm finding, like, nah, I'm going to lean into this Midwest thing. I'm going to lean into the fact that I'm a dad and that I really value my faith tradition, but I also like to talk shit. Like, I'm going to mix all of that up.
But that's you in alignment, and you'll go a lot farther when everything is in alignment. And you know, you feel better, you do better, you got a fresh perspective. I respect that, and that's, you know, goals. And I feel that we all should strive to reach that height, you know, be in alignment. And, you know, you all be here today is already a great step. So, you know, Marcus, I really thank you for joining us today, and you've given us some amazing insights. This has been very fruitful, and we hope that you all have garnered just a little nuggets, you know what I mean, that you might be able to use in your next creative endeavor. And now, you know, we're gonna transition into the next phase of this experience, which is the collaboration. I really enjoy what he said about collaboration, and it's something that I believe you need great environments for, where you can kind of converse and, you know, learn about what other people are into. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Thank you all for joining us and your time for this conversation. Let's give it a round of applause for yourself. So, hey, let's get into it. Thank you all. Let's collaborate.
Let me get the continuity shots y'all.
Okay, cool.
Just y'all standing next. Well, I'll get y'all sitting first, and then I'll get y'all standing next to each other.
Okay.